I'm making something of myself. A true masterpiece.
You should come work for me, man.
I'm not interested in robbing a corner store at gunpoint. I'll make my move when I decide on what my move is gonna be.
One of our biggest clients is looking for a new driver.
This is my daughter, Mary.
Hey.
Your hair is rad.
Thanks.
This may not be your dream job, but I am so proud of you.
Is Mary ready to go?
She didn't come home last night.
Hey, whoa.
She came home, I brought her.
You're very handsome.
You gotta stop. Here's where it hits the fan.
You're charging bigger with a crime?
Where it all comes down. I don't know what happened to her.
Then tell them that.
I know you're innocent. It's too late for that.
Mary?
Mom?
Mary?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I can tell you like the movie. Well, I'm so excited to be here with this incredible cast and filmmaker to talk to you about this amazing, amazing story. Congratulations, you guys, on the film.
Thanks.
Thank you. I want to start by asking a question I think most of us who didn't know the story very well wonder, without getting too far into spoilers, for people who might not see it, who are watching elsewhere, how much of this was true, and how, for you as a filmmaker, Robin, how much did you want to hew to the veracity of the story versus do what all filmmakers do, which is tell a good dramatic story?
Well, the good news is that in the truth lay the good dramatic story. I mean, there was an embarrassment of riches to this story. I could, you know, the biggest issue for me when I first found out about the story and read the book, which was back in 2005, was how far back could I start? Because these two, you know, Ann Atwater and Sam Ellis, C.P. Ellis were you know, they had been battling for years and years and years, and Ann Atwater had this incredible history way before this. I mean, she was profiled alongside Lady Bird Johnson in a Life magazine in 1967. I mean, you know, so for me it was just about where to start and how to tell it in a 2-hour movie, you know, and so most of it is exactly like it happened. And I had to turn it into a narrative, of course, and some characters are amalgams, but almost every one of the main characters is real.
Let's talk a little bit about the physicality of inhabiting these characters. Sam, I noticed you had this kind of like a slouchy shuffle, and Taraji Ann had a booming voice. When I heard her first say Durham, that was like the only thing I could imagine saying it that way. And then in a certain shape, I know you went back and forth on getting her bosoms just right. So tell me about how much that informed what you guys did.
Well, I mean, you know, these are real people. So they have loved ones and a whole community that know and knew them very well and lifted them up. And so it was so important that we get it right. And of course, I look nothing like Ann, so I had to physicalize her. And I got with wardrobe, and I was like, you know, you need to give me some weight because I need to move different. I can't walk like me, I need to walk like Ann. And so I finally get to Atlanta, and I see the prosthetic suit. And it's fine, it's a little small and cute and pretty. And I was like, not to say that Ann wasn't pretty, but I'm just saying it was too Hollywoodized, if you will. And I said, that's not that woman. I said, I need girth, you know? And so they added more to the suit, and I said, and the boobs are off. The boobs are way too small. This is a Southern woman who stores things in her bosom.
Like the best of us do, yes.
Well, yeah, and you know, when I think of Southern women, you literally want to crawl up into their boobs and you want to go to sleep. So I was like, that's not happening here. And I said, you need to call Tyler Perry and ask him what they did to make Medea's boobs, because I need those. And so they made them really big, and I was like, yes, that's it. And so when we get on this press tour, I find out that our fearless leader over here was subtracting from my boobs every day. I didn't know.
Oh,
is that right?
First week only.
They were huge. They were like
this. They were big.
Yes, that'll make me move different.
He took some off?
He did. He
Every
didn't
day
tell
I
me.
took a little bit out until the end of the week.
Because I was fighting. I was like, no, it's perfect.
I didn't know that.
That's funny.
You also don't know that I have one in my office at home.
You have one of Ann's boobs.
Yeah.
Ann, you hear this?
And Sam, what about you?
I had some padding in my pants, for sure. Not a codpiece, but...
and you didn't tell me about that.
Did you reduce that?
No.
No, I had some padding. That's right. I don't know if I told you
didn't tell
about that. I had some padding in my pants. Also, you know, Atlanta has some good bars and restaurants. And, you know, I had some beer, and as I did in Nashville when I shot there. So, yeah, there was a little bit of, but not much weight gain, but there was more padding, yeah.
From a production standpoint, another thing that I loved, I don't know if you guys noticed, like how much you get to see how much the characters are sweating. All those sweat stains, that's a level of detail that we don't necessarily always see in a period movie. And I wonder if you guys could talk about what else you were kind of channeling.
Oh man,
from
there
that
was
era.
some, I almost got heat stroke one day at the gas station.
Oh yeah, it was hot.
It was really hot.
It was hot.
Yeah.
But we made, you know, J.R. Harbaker and I, our costume designer is brilliant. She and I sat down early on and looked at a bunch of pictures and looked at the South, and looked at things like Cool Hand Luke and other movies and the sweatiness of it. And we said, you know what, this is it. Like, you know, this is what we should do. So everybody had spray bottles. Not that we needed them some days because they were really, it was hot. But we did spray everybody down.
What else did you do to kind of channel the tension of the era? I mean, one thing that I noticed in the beginning of the movie, Taraji, Ann is kind of always trying to convince other people of the Black community's humanity. She's literally saying when she's fighting for better housing, she's saying, we're humans, we can't live like this. And that really speaks to the tensions in the era, in that era.
Well, the unfortunate part about that beat is we see a lot of that today. So it wasn't a lot to channel. It's like, it's unfortunate. And that's why I gave up my entire hiatus to film this. I was filming Proud Mary, and literally I went from Empire, from Cookie to Proud Mary, Ann Atwater, back to Cookie. So I had no time in between. But this project was so important to me that I was like, if not now, when? So I gave up my hiatus and literally ended up in the hospital, but it was still worth it.
She did.
She
That's
did.
true.
That is true.
Yeah, she was such an inspiring figure. As Robin mentioned, she had this incredible life, and she was this real activist. I mean, one of the other things that you catch in the movie is that, you know, C.P. Ellis's world, the KKK, obviously all male, and when we see glimpses of Operation Breakthrough and Atwater's organization, you see a lot of women working in the background, and she was a real leader, you know, certainly in her community. Was that part of the reason that you wanted to portray this in terms of showing this kind of leadership on screen?
Absolutely. I mean, she was a voice for the voiceless, a hero. Not rich, had no money, but she had a lot of compassion and love in her heart. And I think that's what we're missing today. We need more compassion, we need more understanding, and we need to literally stop yelling at each other and listen. So this was important because a woman led this, you know. Fearless woman. She was up against a lot of powerful men, white men, who had all the power, and she didn't back down. She would die for the cause.
Robin, you spent some time with her before she died in 2016. Can you tell us what she was like?
Yeah, I mean, when I had the option of the book first in 2009, and then I let it lapse and went and produced The Hunger Games. And then after that, I said, you know, I just want to write this and direct this. And luckily, the rights to the book were still available, and I got on a plane and beeline to Durham and met Ann at her nursing home where she was in because she had a bum knee at the time. We eventually got her home, and so, man, was she something. I mean, just to know her for 3 years was, you know, I'd always heard about Rough House Annie and the dogged determination, but she had all these young people in town doing errands for her and helping her. She touched everyone. They called her Grandma Ann by that point. And she not only really, I was just so fortunate to know her, but she really gave me the perspective of I needed to make this movie because her perspective on herself, her life, and her perspective on CP, who had passed away in 2005, and how she felt about it. And yeah, just to know her for 3 years. My only regret is we didn't get to make the movie before. But let me tell you, the amount of voicemails I had, and I sent Taraji a few, how excited Ann Atwater was that Taraji Henson was playing her. You have no idea.
She called me a cookie lady.
Yeah.
Taraji,
tell me what, yeah, Taraji.
That cookie lady's playing me. That's what she told her granddaughter. I mean, you know, it's not like my name is easy to pronounce.
And you did have a premiere in Durham where you had community members and family members.
Did you have Ann's family there?
Ann's family, also CP's family.
That's right.
Yeah.
And who was Vicky? Who is Vicky?
Vicky, CP's daughter.
That's right, yeah.
She came up and my son love you. Now, listen to how, that's funny, but the beauty of it is that what if Ann had not made the change in his life? Vicky probably would have never come up to me, or anybody black for that matter. Yeah. She saved a generation of hate in a family.
Yeah.
She did. You know, all of CP's grandchildren and children are friends with Ann's grandchildren, like Facebook, and they talk to each other, and CP from his father and his father before them, he stopped, like you said. Ann helped him stop that entire generation of hate. Yeah.
Do you feel like the movie takes a perspective about focusing on CP's transformation? Do you think Ann was transformed by this friendship?
Absolutely, absolutely. She was used to yelling and screaming and being so passionate about getting her point across, right? Which really made her no different from CP. Even though she was on the right side of history, her approach wasn't good. And it was just as bad as his. So if people are looking on the outside, she looks just as bad as he does, the way they're screaming and yelling at each other, right? She had to be transformed. So while Ann herself is trying to work on Sam, Bill Riddick was working on Ann. Bill Riddick is the one who changed her heart, right? Remember, she told him, go back up north. You don't know how things work down here. But he kept, and his nice, he has Bill Riddick, the real guy, the real Bill Riddick, is something about him that draws you in. He doesn't have bosom, but you kind of want to lay up. Something about him is very nurturing as a man, you know?
He's got a lot of gravitas.
He does, and his voice just pulls you in, you know? And it took him to work on Ann and to show Ann that she needed to be the change she wanted to see in CP. That saying is so deep and it's so real. You must become the change you want to see. Because if you're on the same side screaming and yelling, there will be no change.
Yeah.
But Michelle Obama said it. When they go low, you go high. So at some point, somebody has to jump off the gerbil wheel and go high, right? Somebody has to do it.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going. Who's gonna do it? Who's gonna do it? Who's gonna get off of Twitter with your angry fingers and rise above? No, I want to hear you.
What do you mean? Twitter's not a tool for peaceful communication? Okay. I want to talk about, on the point of transformation, Sam, you won an Oscar for playing another racist character in 3 Billboards.
Thank you. Yeah.
And
Somebody's got to do it.
when we get to see what
Right?
makes that character tick similarly
Yes.
to what we see here. But, you know, I would venture to say that you personally are a fairly progressive person, so I'm curious what
Yeah.
makes this worldview appealing to inhabit.
I think I really was just looking for complicated, nuanced characters. You know, I grew up watching, you know, we all grew up watching anti-heroes, you know, films in the 70s, you know, were all anti-heroes. So, you know, but, you know, I didn't know that there would be so much controversy about it. So I just took this role wanting to work with Taraji and reading a great script. And I love characters that change, you know. So I took it on as a challenge, and I thought it was a beautiful story, an important story about, a very important story, but when you say important, that kind of means boring, you know, so I don't want to say important. I think it's an entertaining story as well, and just this thing about a charrette where people, as Taraji said, listen to each other, and I just think it's an incredible story. But beyond that, selfishly, I just wanted to play a character that's complex and changes. Yeah.
So you were not as fortunate as to have sort of a real life example from Robin's experience with Ann. What did you draw on in terms of CP did give speeches, and there was a documentary about their relationship?
Well, Taraji and I were both listening to their voices quite a bit, and we had our own dialect coaches and stuff like that. But I spent time with a lot of CP's relatives, and I actually met his mentally handicapped son, who's also blind, and
Who's still up at Murdoch.
who's still up in Murdoch, and he's an old man now, and that was really intense and moving, and but you know, Taraji and I are both, you know, theater actors. We're actor nerds, so to speak, and we do the homework, and we we're just listening to our voices.
We were like two nerdy geeks.
Yeah, you know. And when you play real people, you know, you have a responsibility, and you feel like, oh, I gotta get this right, you know. So
if for anybody but the loved ones, you know, especially when they're not iconic, like the masses won't know if she walked or if he walked or talked like that, but their loved ones will, and that's still a responsibility.
And how do you feel about portraying the, you know, unsavory parts, the KKK parts, and having to put that on?
I wasn't brought up that way. I was brought up I'm a city kid, and it's funny because I always get these country people, you know. I mean, I grew up on concrete, and they're always trying to throw me on horses, and playing racist, or I got a lasso in my hand, or whatever. And to me, I find it very strange because I grew up in an interracial background, and my father was very liberal. I met Harvey Milk when I was 8. So I did talk to an ex-neo-Nazi guy who now pulls people out of hate groups, a guy named, I always mess up his name, Christian Picciolini.
Yeah.
And I think the Ed Norton character in
American History.
Yeah, it was based on him. And he said, you know, it's not so much that you hate brown people, black people, gay people, Jewish people, it's that you hate yourself. And that stuck with me. And it's not that I go around, you know, like in a pit of self-loathing. You know, but I think any of us who's had a bad day can relate to that, and you can draw upon that, and so that was a way in, because somebody who hates themselves and they say, oh, I'm broke because of, and they want to blame it on some demographic, and that's what CP is coming from.
But those people are also more easily preyed upon by white power structure.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
People in power who want to be the puppeteer, they look for people like CP. They look for people who are hurting, and they want to tell them who's to blame, and they want to manipulate their fingers to be pointed where they want it to be. And that's exactly what.
That's across the board. That's not even just hate groups. That's cults. That's gangs.
Yes.
That's people looking for acceptance and love.
Yeah.
That's how they find themselves in these groups.
Yeah.
It's a false sense of love, but it's someone saying we love you. It's weird, but.
Well, some of the points of commonality that they found, that CP and Ann found later on, was sort of about their class struggles and
That's
realizing that their common enemy was not sort of each other or the communities they represented, but the people in power that were keeping workers underemployed in Ann's case, for example, or just that sort of power structure. They both were struggling financially, and CP then of course became an organizer with the AFL-CIO. They really were labor activists at heart.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting part of their connection that you see sort of teased out in their speechifying. You can really imagine these guys eventually, getting other people to join their movement, and probably why they were such effective speakers and leaders together.
That's why Bill Riddick picked them both to lead the charrette. He was very clever.
Yeah.
And he's around still today.
Still today.
Yeah, he's been with us.
He's coming tomorrow night, yeah.
He's coming tomorrow night, and he's a lovely man.
He really is.
He was with us last week in Durham, or a week and a half ago, I guess. We had 1,000 people. We had 80 of the family members. I'll tell you, that's the test. When the family members all love it, and they are emotional, and because they hung in there with us a long time before this movie got made. And that was the moment. It was like, okay, we've done our job. So.
Robin, you said you'd optioned the book a number of years ago, and obviously movies take a long time to get made.
Yeah.
In the interim, you're a successful producer. You did The Hunger Games. This is your debut as a writer-director. What made you think, I'm the person to tell this story?
Well, that's interesting question, because the timing for me, I first heard the story in 2005 from Time magazine. It was CP's death, and it said just a little blurb about how CP had died, and he was a Klan member, Klan leader who had become an activist. And I was, okay. And then I read the book and realized how it happened, Ann Atwater. But I was producing, you have to find a writer, find a director. I didn't really know what to do with it at the time. So I let it lapse, and I'd been wanting to direct. I knew that I was suited to direct movies. I wasn't sure I could write a movie this well. I hope that this well, but sorry. Well, they said yes, so but I knew that I wasn't a young kid, I wasn't at a film school, so in order to be able to direct a movie, I was gonna have to write something and own the rights and say no one else is doing this but me. And this is the movie, this didn't happen until 2013, and this was the story that kept me up at night. This is the one that I said, this odd couple, it's a great, powerful story, but also it's one that will be engaging. And when you're engaged with characters and you fall in love with characters, then when they change and they metamorphosize, then it's so much more emotional. And you don't get to do that as a filmmaker very often, or as actors. And so the timing sunk up for me for saying, I gotta write this and I gotta direct it. And then, even in 2005, I thought it was incredibly relevant, and who would have thought, Now it's even more so, which it's not the good news that it's more relevant, but
Taraji, you played historical pathbreakers before, like Katherine Johnson in Hidden Figures. What does it mean for you to learn more about these characters that were not, these real people who were not, unfortunately, widely known? Their stories were not widely known, even though they changed not only their communities, but in Katherine's case, really the world. To learn about that yourself and then bring it to a wider audience on screen.
It makes me excited about what I do as an artist. It gives me hope to know that, if there's an Ann Atwater, there's a Katherine Johnson, there's more. Just like C.P. Ellis is just one story. He met and spoke to an ex-KKK who, this is what he does, is pull guys out of groups like this. So it gives me hope. When the world seems to be dark and it seems to be hopeless, it gives me hope to know that more characters are out there like this. I've gotten another script that's not like this, but it's about somebody that we don't know about that's done great things. So it's just, like I said, it just gives me hope.
Yeah, one of the things that I wrote down in my notes when I saw the movie was the word audacity. Because when you just think about the audacity of Ann Atwater to believe that she could change and challenge the system of oppression that has existed for hundreds of years, or the audacity of C.P. Ellis to think, I'm going to publicly renounce my community and the networks that have raised me. Are you crying? Are you okay?
I was sorry. It's just something that Taraji said. Sorry. Sorry, I got a little teary. Yeah, I got a little teary. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. It's embarrassing.
Here you want my old tissues? No,
thank you. I want
boogers.
that. Thank you. Yes. I got a little teary. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead. Continue. I see we're on a timer here.
You can have your moment. It's okay.
No,
but
fine.
what was it that made you feel that way?
No, it was just, I don't know, just something about Taraji in general, but just, yeah. But I see we're being timed, so we should continue.
Well, no, I'm curious whether that sort of audacity was both unique in their era and part of the times, right? I mean, that civil rights era, and it's something that perhaps we're seeing in some of our political shifts now and our social shifts now. You know, when you think about kids organizing protests, I mean, some people would say there's that level of audacity on the other side of the political aisle also. So it depends, you know, where you land, how you feel about those changes. But to your point, Robin, about the movie coming out now, it's not, you didn't plan it that way.
No.
But do you feel a little bit, you know, eager to see this movie land in this moment?
Yeah, I guess, because what the movie, you know, when I first thought about this movie, I thought about, oh, it's about labels. It's about how we label each other in this two-dimensional world, and by a couple, you know, couple phrases, right? And we don't really know each other. And then it becomes other things as you spend time with it, and spend time with Sam and Taraji and talking about it. And then it hit me not too long ago that these two characters were leaders in their community. And they had hundreds of, if not thousands of people in those communities that would follow them. Right? And so to get one of those leaders to change and have the audacity or courage of leadership, because he clearly had made a change because of Ann Atwater. And he could have just said, no, I'm not going to admit that. But he did. And what it did was it changed people. I met with the head of, who had to meet me in secret. He wants to remain anonymous, the kid that was the head of the youth corps. And he came in and talked to me. He walked in the door crying. He wanted to meet me privately, and he told me for the first couple of years after CP ripped up his car, he was mad at him. He was 19, and then he followed suit. And so our leadership, we all need leadership. We don't have time to all be leaders. You know what I mean? We need our leaders to have audacity, to have courage.
We need our leaders to have a voice.
Yeah.
A sane one.
Yeah. But also to your point, young people are so important. You know, we talked about this the other day, Taraji. Through history, you see young people, their power, the numbers, they change. And there's a reason, because the older we get, now we're artists, so this is what we do for a living, and it's great for us to be able to do this. But it's harder to be idealistic when you're older. You have a mortgage, you have kids, you don't want to risk stuff.
You're just tired.
Yeah. and you're tired, but it's harder to risk things.
Yeah.
And when you're kids, you don't. When you're young people, you don't have
fearless.
all that stuff. Fearless. And that's why young people are so important in change. So I hope they, you know, I hope they take something from this.
But that was what also was so astonishing about these characters, is they were not young. They both had a lot at stake to make these kind of changes.
Yes.
Was there the fallout that we see a little bit, you know, touched on in the screen, on screen? Was that, how much of that was real? How much of the negative impact followed them in the moment after they made those changes?
CP had a rough life after. He, you know, 6 months after this, he checked himself into his facility. Thought he was going to kill himself. But he says, it's the price I paid. And then Ann picked him up again. And she co-opted him, and they became like an activist duo. And they'd go around the country and talking to people. And yeah, he didn't have an easy life. She had a terribly hard life.
No, she died in poverty. Right?
Yeah, poverty, complete poverty. Couldn't afford a headstone.
I think they were raising money to get her a new bed or something.
Yeah, we raised money to get her bed. And her headstone, we had to raise money to get a headstone.
Yeah.
She was selfless. She was selfish.
But they made a difference. Look at these two poor people.
If people think when you get money, that's when you make change. Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, from an organizer perspective, that was one of the things that was really notable about the both of them, is that they, you know, the activist community, especially the Black activist community, from what I've, you know, read and understood about Durham in the time, was middle class. Ann was not. She was the daughter of a sharecropper. She was a home worker herself, single mother. And so when she came to the forefront and she represented a new wave of activism where people were coming from a different economic level. I think one of the reasons that she didn't have money is she gave stuff away. She gave
everything away.
Tons. And she was
made
a foster.
sure people had stuff before she did. And she's a foster
Mother for a long time after,
Yeah. She was just a giver, natural. That's just what she was. Just a hero. Jeez Louise. I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine.
I know for actors there's characters that kind of stay with you, and I wonder, we have a minute or so left. Tell me if these are characters or scenes or moments that are going to stay with you, or if there are other characters that you've played that
They all stay with me. I can't, it's like children. You can't say which one is your favorite. Like they're all my favorite, and they're all very near and dear to me, and they've all changed me in a way for the better. I've learned something from every character that I've portrayed.
I'm a little bit scared to wonder what you learned from Cookie.
Just don't take no for an answer.
Sam, should I ask you what you learned from playing George W. Bush?
That's a really good answer. Her answer was pretty good. Bush, I don't know. I mean, it's really like she says, they're all your children, and you learn something from every character. And I don't know. That's a tricky one. I mean, you're just trying to find the humanity in all these characters, you know?
Yeah. It's hard as an actor not to judge them, because some of the characters, you're like, oh my God, this person is despicable. You can't.
You can't do that.
Your job as the actor is to live that character's truth, no matter how pretty or ugly it is, because someone in that audience needs that representation.
That's right. You have to find something you like about that character. You know, like like Cookie. I'm sure you found some. You found something about that.
I found a lot of things I like about Cookie. You're so funny.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
You know what I mean?
But well, let's wrap up on the idea then of judgment. I mean, one of the things that you so effectively show in this film is how you can move past preconceived notions. And, you know, as actors, you guys are full of empathy. You take the time to think about people's motivations, their ideas, what you can find to like in them. Is that something that you feel like we could all use a little more of?
Absolutely. It's all in listening for understanding, trying to understand the other side. Like, we can all scream and yell at each other all day long, and like I said, we will not get anywhere. Someone has to jump off the train that's headed for destruction, rise above it, right? Someone has to do it, or we're all headed for destruction. Like, someone has to go high. Someone has to do it. Thank God in this situation it was Ann, because then I go to Durham and I meet CP's family, and they're rushing to me, hugging me, wanting to take pictures with me. When if they had never interacted, that wouldn't have happened. Right.
That's right. Well, I hope that everybody had enjoyed the movie, enjoyed our evening. I hope that in the future you get to be enveloped in someone's bosom. Thank you guys. You've been a terrific audience.